Good morning, goddammit. Piss and vinegar day 180. Back in biceps, switching it up. I'm deciding to hit biceps on my back day so that I don't have a pre-fatigue tendon because I got bicep tendonitis, and I feel like if I train my back and bicep the same day, rather than doing back then biceps a few days later, where my tendon is broken down from the indirect stimulus of the back workout, I'll have more recovery in the biceps, which could potentially equate more gains, and more importantly, settle down my tendinosis a little bit more. It's not tendonitis, it's tendinosis because it's long standing. There's a distinction there if you don't realize or if you don't know. So yeah, I'm doing back and biceps and forearm, and I forgot to do rear delts. But anyway, today I wanted to talk about body dysmorphia or bigorexia or whatever. And I got a lot of different opinions on this in many ways, but recently I started feeling a bit more dysmorphic than usual. I've always had dysmorphia since I started lifting weights, and even before then, which I'll go into in a bit. But it fluctuates. Sometimes you're like, oh fuck, I'm so small, and sometimes you are so small. Like when I first started training again when I was 18, 19, after a hiatus from when I was like 16, I was small, so I was like dysmorphic as fuck. Nowadays, I'm not like necessarily small. I'm just not happy with my physique, or totally happy with my physique yet. And it's a bummer because before my bicep tear, I was getting close to a physique that I was actually quite happy with. I didn't really have any neurotic thoughts where I'm like, oh, from this angle I'm not quite big enough, or whatever. Like I was like pretty happy. I still had thoughts like, oh, my biceps don't look good from certain angles. I need to get them bigger so they look good from every angle, and that way, when I look in the mirror, I look like I lift from every every lighting angle and every muscle angle or whatever. But ultimately, I was starting to get pretty chuffed with myself. I was starting to see my posing and go, wow, this is kind of cool. Whereas before, I'd always see my posing and go, fuck this, dude. Like I just get bummed out about it, just because I have such mediocre genetics. But then the bicep tour, and my body composition's been going a bit shitty because I'm recovering from a traumatic injury. I'm losing a bunch of muscle on my all of my left side, like my hand, my forearm, bicep, tricep, everything shrinking. And yeah, I'm just looking a bit fluffier because my testosterone's lower probably, and I'm just not I'm not in good shape or top shape right now because of the injury. But anyway, I've been feeling a bit down about it, but I was thinking about this, and you have to understand that body dysmorphia, when controlled, isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you have body dysmorphia that makes you need to take steroids, and then when you get on steroids, you get huge, you're like a massive bodybuilder, and you still think you're too small, then you have some sort of form of bigorexia, where you're like the opposite of anorexic, where you look in the mirror and you have 20-inch biceps, but you still think you're small. That is definitely unhealthy. But looking at your physique objectively and going, no, this is not quite what I want. I want to be a piece of art. I want to be a sculpture. I want to have a beautiful, massive aesthetic physique. This is not inherently necessarily a bad thing. If it ruins your life because all you can always think about is that, then yes, by all means, it's probably a problem, and you probably have bigorexia. But if you are just generally like, nah, it just doesn't bum me out too much, but I do want a bigger, more lean, more jacked physique. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's plenty of benefits that come along with having a big, jacked, lean physique. There are so many opportunities that open up, and for me, it's funny. It's kind of like it came from like my formative years. The quest to become big and strong and masculine and all those things encompassing when I was like 5 or 6. My old man first showed me like the Terminator movies. Arnold Schwarzenegger, all jacked out of his mind, like especially at the start of the movies, he's like teleporting into reality, and like he hasn't got any clothes on because he's fucking butt naked, but he's jacked. There's fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger in the '80s we're talking about, and I remember just going, man, that's just what I want to look like. But when you're 5 or 8 or whatever, like when you're really young, you're not a teenager yet, you don't even know. Like you just see it on Arnold Schwarzenegger and you think that guy just built that way. Like that's just God just sculpted him and made him that jacked, and that's just how it is. But then at like 13, 14, it's like no, you can lift weights and you can start getting big. You might not look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You probably never look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but you can get jacked and muscular like Arnie by lifting weights. So then that's what you start doing. But I was already like imprinted those ideas like as a very small child that I wanted to be this big, strong, ultimate male sort of thing. And then when I had an opportunity to do that by lifting weights, I went with it. And that's when body dysmorphia kicks in. When you start lifting weights, you're all like happy and keen to do it at the start. You're a 14-year-old and you're thinking it'll look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then like reality sets in, and there's like genetics, and there's steroid usage, and there's fake naturals that are giving you false hope, and all these different things that come alongside that. And people who have better genetics, who have been training a fraction of the time, who are bigger than you, and all of a sudden you're like, man, where the fuck are my gains? And you start getting body dysmorphia, and then you might start getting some gains, but you're still like, it's not quite enough. And that's just sort of like, it's a long journey, but it's not necessarily an unhealthy one. You just have to. Have I been recording? Thank fuck. You have to have perspective. You have to have a sink or swim mentality where if you have genuine body dysmorphia, like I do, and many lifters do, you have to look at it as this. Well, you either do something about it and then eventually one day fix it by having the physique that stops you from being dysmorphic, or you do nothing and you keep looking at the mirror and going, fuck, for the until you die, you have body dysmorphia that you can never cure, because there's only two ways of curing it. Either you stop giving a shit about your physique in general, which is not a good idea, because every man should have some vanity and some pride in his physique and some aspirations of seeing, a beautiful physique before the day he dies. Or you go, okay, well, better try to achieve the best possible physique I can so that one day I can be at peace with my physique. And if you're never at peace with your physique, that's fine. You shouldn't. There's no such thing as peace as a man. You always, if you're at peace, you I think you've probably given up. I mean, obviously, not. I don't know. I mean, peace. Yeah, you got to be at peace in a way, but there also has to be like some chaos and want and strive at all times. Otherwise, you just stagnate and die. So the day that I'm like really like perfectly happy and complacent with my physique is the day that I probably stop giving a shit about fitness in general. So I'll probably never be like totally cured of my body dysmorphia personally, but I will get more and more happy or closer to peace with my physique as time goes on. As I get bigger, as I get stronger, I am more and more happy. And as I said, like just 3 months ago, I was pretty close to being like, yeah, this is like a physique that I can really get mentally happy with, you know what I mean? And I'll get there and beyond in the next, 6 months or so. 4 more weeks until I start lifting light weights with my left arm. Probably 2 months after that, I'll be able to start really getting to heavy weights. Probably 4 or 5 months from now, I'll be to my previous physique. A year from now, I'll be bigger and stronger than ever. And that's the other thing you have to think is just patience. Like, yeah, you hate your physique now, but if you had it right, if you just could click your fingers and have it tomorrow, you'd never appreciate it, because you'd never have the journey of being the guy who's like, fuck, I hate my physique for like 5-10 years. And then one day you get it and you're like, wow, this is pretty cool. Or you get it and you're like, wow, this is pretty cool. Now I don't really give a shit, because now you achieved it. It's like we all want what we don't have until you have it. Like the amount of times I've achieved things in my life and simply shrugged it off like it was nothing, or not been appreciated at all. Like the biggest one in my life was basically overcoming my PTSD. And then one day I'm like, wow, I can like leave the house and do all these things. And I kind of just totally forgot about how much better my life is now, and never really stopped to thought about the times where as a 16, 17-year-old, I couldn't leave my house. Like I couldn't leave my room. I had to sit in the shower, like just a total mess of a human being, a total broken person. And sometimes you just take these things for granted. It's even something as as accomplishing as that is for me. I just didn't really sat, and I still don't, unfortunately, sit and think, man, I've come a long way. Same thing will happen with physique. If I showed a picture of my physique to myself, say 10 years ago when I started or maybe not 10 years, 8 years ago when I started relifting weights again, and said, you're going to look like this in 8 years, I'd be like, damn, that's fucking sick. I can't wait to look like that. But now that I've got it, it's like, nah, I want to look like whatever I'm going to look like in another 5 years. And if you could show me a picture of what I will look like in 5 years with more consistent effort and more good training and more bulking and cutting processes and just success in general, I'd probably be like, wow, fucking oath, give me that physique now. But when I get that physique when I'm 32, I'll probably be like, yeah, this is pretty cool. But what about when I'm 37? Like, you'll always just be like thinking about that physique that you can get in the future. I mean, obviously, there is a natural limit. I don't buy this nonsense where guys will say, there is no natural limit, bro. No, there's a fucking natural limit for sure. And then at a certain point, then it's like, do you jump on steroids to keep going? If not, then you just have to be complacent with a certain maintenance area. You can make tiny little fractional changes over time, but then by the time you're like 45, your testosterone starts to drop a little bit, and then you start to induce sarcopenia and get smaller anyway. So like, unfortunately, we're not immortal, and we only have maybe 30 years of ideal gains until everything starts to slowly but surely fall apart anyway. And then you have to get on testosterone replacement if you want to keep making more gains, which when I'm 55 years old, I'm sure I'll start blasting test. But anyway, point being is body dysmorphia, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's how you interpret it. If you think it is this horrible thing that dictates your life and you give it power, if you give it like spiritual energy, like a fucking spirit bomb from Dragon Ball Z, yeah, it'll fucking blow up in your face, and you might either give up or you're in this like constant struggle of like wishing you had a better physique, which will not do any good for your training. You like anytime you are in a bad mental place because you're like miserable with the way you look, you're probably less likely to train hard and do things consistently. You want to be in a good, happy place when you're trying to get good results. Obviously, it's like dark energy. You got to harvest that shit. I've made videos about this before, but it's just the perfect example of this. It is a dark thought to think, wow, my body is not adequate. I don't look good enough, and it's making me unhappy. But you have to harness that dark thought and go, good, well, let's take that and make a great physique out of it then. Because if you weren't insecure about your physique, then you wouldn't fucking build it up. Like, you wouldn't give a shit. Like, you'd probably do swimming or some other form of exercise. Or maybe you wouldn't exercise at all, and all of a sudden, because you're not insecure about your physique, then you don't live as long. Like, if you're insecure about your physique, you're more likely to exercise. When you exercise, you have better brain chemistry, you have better lung capacity, you have better heart health. You'll probably likely have far, far better nutrition than the average person. And all of a sudden, you are by proxy happier and healthier by the fact that you have what is determined as a mental illness in bigorexia or body dysmorphia. So if you could think about it like that, yeah, it sucks to have body dysmorphia, but it could potentially be a massive benefit in many other areas of your life, including your success. You have body dysmorphia, great. Now you build this big jacked physique, and all of a sudden you're a 21st century man where women have incredibly high standards, but you have this awesome physique, and women want to bang you because of that, whereas you could have been the alternative version of yourself with a shitty physique and nothing else going for you, and girls are no longer interested because girls are shallow. Or maybe you go to an interview for a job and your boss really highly respects you because you have an incredible physique and he also works out. Or he doesn't work out because people respect people who are in shape and look healthy far more than they respect people who are fat and ugly. It's just a simple fact. There are statistics that will show this to be true. So your body dysmorphia ultimately makes you a more successful, happy person outside of the fact that your body dysmorphia makes you unhappy. Like, you have to understand, the shit that makes you unhappy is oftentimes the shit that makes you happy in the long run, versus the person who just gives up and eats fucking Maccas all day and doesn't work out and looks like shit and then suffers later on. I have a poster in my gym. I don't like motivational speeches. I don't like motivational, not speeches. I don't mind motivational speeches. I like motivational, eye-opening speeches. Like, I don't like just the same old shit. You have to be a go-getter, bro. You have to, you just have to push through the pain. No pain, no gain. I like that. Like, those motivational quotes, they just make me want to puke in my own mouth. But there's one motivational quote that will always stick to me, and I actually like it, which is, you either suffer or you suffer. It's a simple fact. You're going to suffer in both in one way or the other. And in the context of building a great physique, I'd much prefer suffer in the gym through the pain of training, and suffer in my mind in the insecurity of not being muscular, than be the person who suffers by not worrying about those things, but then dies early and has a horrible physique and has terrible brain chemistry and looks like shit and has no success because you are a physical loser. I'd much prefer suffer the first way. And that's the poster. If you've seen any of my other videos, you might see it. It's the one where the guy on the left is all jacked, and then the counterpart on the right is like a fat dude with a giant gynecomastia nipple. A lot of my clients stare at it when I'm training them, and they don't say anything, which is very funny because I can tell that they think it's weird, but they don't say anything. They're not like, hey, so what's the poster all about? But I can see them eyeballing it sometimes, and they're looking at this dude's giant fat nipple. It always amuses me. I'll probably lose a client to it one day because it will just like mimetically fuck with their head so hard that they're like, I can't go to this guy's gym anymore. But it'll be worth it because it is the only motivational fucking quote that I actually resonate with. So suffer or suffer, and that's body dysmorphia in a nutshell. It's suffering until one day you don't suffer because you're happy with your nice physique. I mean, obviously, if you have serious bigorexia, yeah, you might need to go therapy. You might need to see other things. Like I don't know. I don't know what to tell you if you have actual, genuine, horrible bigorexia where you're on steroids and you literally like hallucinate and see a skinny guy in the mirror when you look in the mirror. It's like anorexia or women with body dysmorphia who are incredibly skinny but think they're fat. It's delusion. Whereas what I'm experiencing is not delusion. It can teeter on delusion sometimes. I would genuinely think I'm quite a lot smaller than I really am, and then someone will be like, dude, you're like really quite big, like you got fucking 17-inch arms, what are you talking about? I'm like, nah, they're not quite that big, but like sometimes you have to catch yourself, and that's like, I guess that's the difference, is bigorexia, you literally cannot see reality, whereas I can generally quite easily see reality. I just am not happy with my physique, which might seem delusional considering I probably have a pretty good physique compared to the average man. But anyway, beyond you, I want to be far, far beyond average, and I think that's the mindset that you should always strive for. Is not like just above average. It's like you should look for really as high as you possibly can. Right? Here's some posing with my crippled arm and my other arm. I think my left arm, I got to measure it. I think it's probably like 12 inches now. I think the average male arm is 13 inches. So it's probably bigger than that then. It's probably like 13, 14 inches. But I wonder how quickly it takes to get back a muscle after you get injured. Because I've never had an injury like this where I've dystrophied. And I don't know if any of you guys are still watching this video at this point. This is a fucking long video. I'm running out of shit to talk about. If any of you guys are in the comments, comment below if you lost a significant amount of muscle from dystrophy before, like bicep tear or a quad tear or an ACL tear or some shit. Let me know how long it took you to get back to the baseline. The only time I've really even seen this happen was Eric Bugenhagen, where he tore one of his collateral ligaments in his knee. It took him a long time to bring his quadricep back to the previous one. I think it took him like 2 years. But granted, the quads are very, very big, whereas the biceps, not as much. From what I've seen, people who tear their biceps, it's like 3 to 4 months after they get back into normal training. So, I don't know. I guess I'll see. Maybe I have some tricks up my sleeve in regards to getting my left bicep back to par when I can start lifting weights again. Namely, I'm going to start doing nucleus overload every day. I'm going to do blood flow restriction bands so I can get more out of less weight safely. And I'm going to train my left arm every day with not intensity, because obviously that'd be ridiculous to train with intensity with a compromised bicep. But I'm just going to do high reps, high volume every single day and just induce as much muscle growth as I can, because my arm is so unadapted now because it's lost all its muscles. Even 5 reps in reserve will be plenty of stimulus in order to grow. And what we know about reps in reserve is if you have a lot of reps in reserve, especially with higher reps, you can train with a lot of frequency. So I'll be able to train with a hell of a lot of frequency with reps in reserve, and reps in reserve will be plenty enough to stimulate growth between the muscle memory and the fact that my arm is plenty unadapted. And then obviously at some point I'll go back to high intensity training, but I'm going to be careful from now on with my left arm. I'll probably always do higher reps with my left arm. I'm probably going to train biceps for quite some time, unilateral. I'll make sure that my left arm is just, really slow, controlled, technique cyborg-like form. 10-second negatives, 10-second positives. Very blood flow restricted, so I don't lift anywhere as much weight as I can without it. That's going to be the plan, and I'm sure my arm will be able to recover quite a lot quicker than the average person from the fact that I'm going to be implementing this technique. Versus it would be ridiculous to just try and train the arm once a week after you've injured it this heavily. The reason I train everything once a week other than that is because I am so well adapted. Anyway, see you guys for more Piss and Vinegar. Dysmorphia isn't necessarily a curse. It's a blessing if you look at it in the right perspective. It's just a mindset.